All right, Maeve, Matt, take us away. Michelle now, the triad.
It's so good to
Right.
see you, Matt.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you.
How are you coping?
Sorry, what?
How are you coping?
Oh, fine. Yeah, the brief will be done today or tomorrow. We're very close. It's just
That's
that
good
I
news.
dotting and T crossing. We've got paired programming scheduled tomorrow with Sarah that I'm very much looking forward to.
I think maybe I've got some people that want to jump on that paired programming. So
We don't have
hopefully,
time yet because I messed
yeah.
up with my scheduling. So when we do, I'll let folks know.
Okay. So I think today maybe Noel and I. So Noel took me through the conservatorship form,
Yeah, the petition.
and it's 6 pages of just like Noel did, like, first of all, just a call out. Noel did such a good job wrangling that form and then taking me through that as well. And now you're doing a flowchart for it.
Yeah, I just started working on that. That's gonna I think it's just gonna make it easier to understand when we do the wizard interview what needs to be repopulated, what can we ignore, and I just think it'll be smoother.
Yeah, because there's a lot of like if this then that, or that logic. So, and then I also wanted to say that you are finished with your hours now, or you're coming up to that.
Yeah, so this will technically be my last week, just as far as I've hit the number that I need to hit. But like I told Maeve, I'm obviously not. I don't have to just drop off. So if anybody needs help with anything, I'm totally available. I just have final exams starting next week, so
Yes, you should focus on those.
So I'm like around. It's just not going to be like consistent. So just Slack message me or whatever if you need anything.
Yeah. But thank you very much for all the work you've put in so far, especially with that form. And I think that with the flowchart and also with you having explained it to me, I think we're quite set on that ground. So you can just focus on your finals. That being said, do we have any blocks that anyone wants to talk about at the moment? Or I know that Caroline and Kendall did a pair programming session on the 209A affidavit. Maybe you want to take us through that?
Kendall, you want to say anything about that?
Okay, so most of it was taking existing logic and kind of just redoing it. So in some sense, we almost just did the interview from scratch with most of the logic. So some of the metadata apparently is a bit out of date now. So those parts will probably have to be updated. But the core of the logic is fine. So it takes the users through, and all of the actual flow is there. The only thing that probably needs to be updated is, I guess there are two things. One is still digital signatures that don't seem to work. And the other is a couple of probably updating the metadata to match the current state of the wizard. But other than that, the interview does run to completion and give a form.
So I checked with Quentin and the metadata should be grandfathered in, so it's okay. Just needed to check on that before confirming it. Yeah.
And the PDF problem was all mine. I was in a hurry and I thought I was sure. I mean, I would put my eldest son's life on the line to say I put user signature, and I didn't. And so that was my fault. I'm really sorry about that.
That's perfect. Then I'm gonna get your version from you so that
It's on the Trello. It's on the Trello.
Mm-hmm.
So Noel and I use Quentin's signature wizard check for that form because it's got quite a lot of signature fields and it worked perfectly. So it was really good to use that. And I think it's pretty simple to do. Do you think I need to explain how to do it? Is anyone else seeing Kate's cat here?
To do Quentin's or to put the digital signatures on?
To do Quentin's, and then maybe what to do if it doesn't work. I was struggling with how to explain that.
I think what to do if it doesn't work, you should put in, but I don't think you need to explain how to use it. I mean, upload PDF.
Okay, got it. Right, noted. So that was the first pair programming, and then this week we've got some more scheduled. I know Matt used it with Sarah. Michelle, you've also got with Michelle.
I have, and I do have scheduled. I think it's 1 o'clock. Tomorrow.
I'm going to try and get those people who want to shadow. I'm going to try and get those people involved, and then also just tell them who, because at the moment it's Michelle and Matt. Am I missing anybody here who's doing paid programming?
Yeah, I think the remaining questions were, Kim is able to do the impoundment affidavit, but we kind of tentatively were saying maybe Michelle, but I was just wondering if that was too much for Michelle to be doing that much paired
me,
programming
Michelle, or that much
to Michelle.
Oh yeah, I can try. Yeah,
I just didn't know if that was like too much for you.
I think as long as I've got some PRs in that, as long as I've looked at Kendall's PRs and I didn't see any from anyone else, then yeah, that sounds good.
And then we just didn't have we didn't have a developer paired with Emma and the defendant confidential information form.
I think maybe what we could do is there's one guy who wants to shadow a session, and I think once he's shadowed one, he'll be fine to go. So
cool.
I'm hoping I'm going to try and schedule him first, like early, and see if then maybe he can pair with who did you say, Emma?
Yeah.
And then hopefully, I mean, if that goes according to plan and we get the shadows done and we get the paired programming done, then we're looking good on the 209A, right?
Yeah.
Am I missing something?
That is music to my ears.
We need something to pull it all together. I mean,
yes,
Michelle,
exactly.
we need the sub umbrella for 209A page 1, which should pull in all the other bits.
I think Quentin might have to orchestrate that, but I would really like to ride along and watch that so that I can do it next time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I suppose,
Quentin?
Kate, would need something not as complex, but for 258E, we'd need something.
Yeah, I know that's 258Es not on the probate court list because they don't do 258Es, but are those, I was assuming those were also
those
priority?
are also priority. Yeah. I think we haven't gotten the full list, but I know from discussion that is our priority.
Yeah, I mean, because they're just done in district court, and the district court hasn't given a list, right?
No, they haven't, and they're being a little they're being a special. This is recorded. They're
That's okay. Then you
they haven't provided a
anymore.
list yet. They have not provided a list yet.
But I mean, I think I don't think we should make decisions because of technology. However, as soon as we finish the 209A, it makes sense to jump into the 258E because we're in the, it's efficient, and we know 258E they've said it's urgent. So it makes sense to do them close together so they don't have to go back and remember, no matter how good your documentation is, you don't have to go back and say, what did we do? You just go right into the 258E, which will be much easier than the 209A anyway.
Yeah, most of the work for the 258E will have been done for the 209A. It'll be a matter of, I think, the complaint, the affidavit, which I think some of the Northeastern students were trying to do something modeled kind of off of Caroline's 209A affidavit just to see what they came up with. Because I think that'll need like the same guide. Because Caroline, you don't have the similar guidance for 258E, right?
Right. No, not like the affidavit.
Yeah,
no.
so they were trying to model something off of your 209A stuff for 258E. It is like a trickier statute, but it'll work. It'll happen.
Yeah.
And then it's really, after it's a lot of the work will have been done in the 209A process.
How much extra, forms, for example, how many extra forms that the 258E requires that are not incorporated in the 209A?
The complaint in the affidavit, and then if either party is under 18, there's an additional form.
Okay, so the majority of work has been done. So then should we what is the aim for getting the 209A up to give to the court? My understanding is that we have to run it through the courts, right? The courts will give the final go ahead?
Yeah, so what'll happen is once we have a working copy, we'll share that with the courts and they'll give their sign off. It's a little unclear exactly. I deal with a single point person, so that point person will tell me. But my understanding is that there might be a bit of a disagreement between the courts that accept 209As as to what they are willing to accept. That being said, I think the disagreement is primarily over whether or not they require all of the forms or whether or not they require the affidavit to do the filing. So I think the fact that we've built it with that assumption that it needs to be there means that we'll be over-inclusive enough that everyone will be okay. But that's my understanding. And the only other thing was that there is a process going on right now, presumably to redo the 209A forms. But they haven't given me the new forms. And actually, I was on a call. Yeah.
That process has been going on for 20 years.
No, I know, but there's a special process now. And apparently I found out this morning that they put them somewhere for people to get them. I think the main addition there is they ask for things like phone number and stuff. So again, I don't think it changes.
And maybe email. Maybe because of this exercise, maybe email.
That was the and stuff. I don't know. I haven't seen the forms. No one's given them.
What a delightful thing for you to find out this morning, David. What a delightful thing for you to find out this morning.
I know. I may not have been as diplomatic on the call as I should have been.
But I don't think it's going to be hard because I can't imagine that they're going to ask questions. Can't even think of what there would be in a case. They'll be more complex than what we've already dealt with.
I think all they've done is there are some courts that have, and apparently these forms are only by one of the courts. And this goes to the faction between some courts wanting everything and some courts wanting nothing. So my understanding leaving the call was that since we were doing everything already, that I think that would sort of make everyone happy. But I won't know that for sure until we have something to show them and they respond to it.
So it sounds like I saw agreement from everybody, and I personally agree. I think Caroline hit the nail on the head in terms of moving to the 250 AD after the 209A. But correct me if I'm wrong, the sense I've always had is that the order of operations was 209A and then everything else. And I think we've done our own internal assessments of prioritization of things. And I personally would rather go with what we're hearing from advocates about what needs to be prioritized than having the court micromanage that. But David, I just wanted to tag that for you in case the court has particular ideas about what should come next. I'm not saying you should ask them. I'm saying that we don't want to be blindsided, if that makes sense.
Yes, sorry, I was receiving a call on but yeah. So the only prioritization we've gotten is they just get it. This at the end. I just sent it over to you guys actually this morning. The housing and the probate and the probate court sent over the list they had before. They prioritized those within the list.
In handwriting.
In handwriting.
And
then there was a follow-up, which then came with some text, which then linked out to some stuff. And so 209As were at the top of that list, so that was fine. And then it was orders to vacate, and then it was guardianship. Is that the guardianship that Noelle's been working on?
Noelle's working on adults, right?
She's been working on adults or juvenile?
The one that we did say was a conservatorship. It's not a guardianship.
Oh, conservatorship.
But prior to that, we have been doing
prior to that, I've done them, but I haven't done that in a while. I'm sure it was minor. But.
Yeah. That's that. And then I was just adding here too, looking over stuff, and the juvenile forms, the only prioritization, and we just got this, was that as the juvenile forms to prioritize the child requiring assistance, the CRA forms. And then the thinking there were those are the ones that might be filled without an attorney.
The list of forms that we have, Alex Fig did that. He went through all the forms that were currently on the Trello and added those on. When new forms get added to the Trello, we need to make sure that the person who adds those on puts them on that list as well, because otherwise we're going to end up in a situation where they're not added. So who actually adds the forms to the Trello?
I've added some. I didn't know there was like a separate list we needed to add to. Sorry, that's my cat's tail. Here he is.
May I suggest something? I know this is getting a little granular. If we have another column that says added to the list.
The way that we've handled it is by actually noting it on the card. So
I'm just saying people won't know. People coming in won't know unless they have a like when someone goes and adds it on the card and they don't know about the list, they're not going to add it to the list.
And it
but
also,
actually
it can,
only SMEs are adding them.
Do they know? Do all of them know about the list?
no, the list is very new.
So I was
And
saying, like, if we had a
yeah.
column and it had a link that said add it to this list.
Add it to this list. And it also requires
because
where are we
people don't
housing
read
the,
anything.
where are we housing the natural or the plain language description of name? Is that being in the card as well? Because that also needs to make it to the list.
I mean, if that is a column in the list, then people might do that. That might be a good way to handle that.
We have a column that's like prioritization of forms, where the SME prioritizes the forms. Perhaps we could combine that column with prioritization and like just a pre-processing form, a pre-processing column, where there's 2 steps are prioritize this card and also add this form to this list and link
I
it.
think the most useful bit is if it's in the title of the column. Like, as long as, I think the text being visible, the text with the instructions being visible without having to click on anything would probably be the most useful in getting people to notice it. That's all. But yeah, I mean, I'm open to whatever.
I think you should.
I just think it's important.
You should also put that plain language description in the card, because I think there are things that need to stay with that. People aren't always going to be going back to the list, to the
That's true.
right. So that plain language needs to be with the card. So wherever the card is, you have the plain language. And I think that also helps us know what form it is, what we're working on, and who to, all of those.
I wish we could make template cards. Does anyone know if Trello does that?
Don't know. I was just going to say that I would advocate for having a single source of the plain language description, because basically what we're doing with the form, we're adding it there because that's basically the list we're giving. That's the text we're giving to get translated. So if that plain language changes, we need to make sure it's reflected in that list so that it's reflected in the translation.
Can you put a link to the card? Would that be too awkward to put a link to the card in the list?
It would not be workable, because all we do is we download the list as an Excel file and provide that to translators.
Okay, so then the final thing is, I mean, I think it's just so important to have the plain language in the card. So what I'm wondering is, you're not going to translate the anything, right, until you're done with the whole card, right?
Well, that may or may not be the case, because we are wanting to say cards that we're working on.
But you don't want to translate it. Do you want to translate a card? I mean, the card is for the.
We want to translate the description. So we very well have a description saying "in progress on this form." So the plain language description should be as good as it can be at the beginning.
I gotcha. Okay, so what you could do then is put it. Yeah.
This is for the website. I don't know if that makes sense, Carol, if you already knew.
No, yeah, I'm figuring that out, because I was thinking, why would you translate it if it's not? But I understand when you say in progress, it's going to go on the website. But the thing is, I think you still ought to have some kind of plain language description on the card, because then when you actually finish it, you're going to translate the form, right? At the point that you get to you're translating the form with the YAML, then you have then that's the plain language description you use. And when it's when it's ready to go, then you can change the language on the web page, right?
And all I'm saying is it's nice to have just one place where that is, so that we don't lose track of it. It's perfectly reasonable to also say we put another, you do it and then you update it and then you have to re-update the form. But anything we can do just to minimize the chance of that being a dropped task.
Maybe
also might be different
link.
descriptions, right?
Maybe.
The one that you have in the website is not necessarily be the same one you need when you're working on the Trello card, which is more about what goes forward.
Yeah, it's just that I don't want anyone to think that the one that on the Trello card, if you change it, then it changes what folks will see.
So what if there were a link in the Trello card to the list? and it says, you know, look up the plain language title of this card in this list, so that at least it's
Yeah,
accessible from the card,
think
if
that would
that's
be
what
fine.
Caroline is going for.
And it would be fine to have a copy on the card, as long as it was clear that was not like the authoritative copy.
I think
just want there to be one authoritative copy.
If we don't want people to take it as a given and as a thing to edit and as a thing to like work on in the card, we probably just want to have people look at the list, because then they can go to the list and edit it there, right? So then there
Yeah.
isn't a danger of them changing it in the card and not on the list.
So we just put a link on each card. This is where you can find the plain language.
Yeah, and put it in the, I think put it in the description, because it's not a comment. It's not something that's going to be changing all the time. I mean,
And then
this will be dynamic. Yeah.
since it links to the list and they have form variables associated with them, you could say this is form 2 or form 3 or whatever form it is, so people can find it.
Mhm.
Okay, that's that on the forms, I think. What else did anybody else have anything they wanted to raise today?
I have a question when other things are done. Or legal folks, for legal.
Can you add me to SME list for CRAs when you get to that point? Thanks.
CRAs.
Maybe okay, so no one else has anything that they desperately need to talk about. I know, Noelle, you need Kindle. Do you have anything?
I'd like to talk a little bit about just sending emails part, so people with dev, if we could stay a little bit after maybe.
But I know, okay, Noelle, you've got to study and you're doing the flowchart and you're running it through the wizard. So if you need to jump off, you're welcome to do that. And anybody else, I think maybe we can all just hang around and do like the dev stuff.
Well, I have the question for the legal people that you don't have to answer
maybe
now.
Okay,
Maybe,
what was the question?
but you can, you know, get me later. I'd like some input about what people are experiencing when they start a case. That is, like, how do they find out about their ability to start the case? How do they figure out how to start the case? That kind of thing. So what is their experience around discovering how to do a case and how to start a case, that kind of thing. I put a message.
Can you specify more the who and what you mean by a case? I think we're getting term of art collision here.
Sorry. Yeah, that's a good point. So, like people who are petitioners, I think it is, people who are starting a case, not respondents, people who are starting a case.
Or just family law.
I would like different perspectives.
So, Michelle, what's the context for your question? So
I'm afraid that if I give you the context, you're going to discuss something that I don't want to discuss.
Well, no, that's just so we know where you're coming from, because it's such a huge question.
It is a huge question, and I would just
how about I give you an answer, and then you can respond to by saying that it's not. No, that's not what I mean.
Okay.
So if we're talking about in the context of starting a case that then might be picked up by our service, that's either going to be, they don't even know it's like a case thing. They talk to maybe a social service advocate or someone in the community, and they say, oh, you need to get a 209A or something like that. And then they would be referenced to us. Or they might know that they have something legally involved, and so they might go to the court's website, and there will be a link to our individual forms there. So now that's enough that you can respond and say, no, that's not what I meant.
That is what I think. It's along the process of what I meant. I think that's a really good start, actually. Yeah. So like, knowing that they talk to some of them talk to social workers sometimes that point them at how to start a case. That is helpful. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. First off, we don't expect anyone to just be Googling around and find our website and start something from there.
Yeah, it's not necessarily. It's not. It'd be how they. I mean, discovering our website is part of it. It's not of it. It's like, how do they figure out that they need to start a case?
Yeah.
That's what they need to do.
Yeah,
that's going to be course in law, right?
That's $1 million question.
Yeah, and I think that's why we're going to.
I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to figure out how to give them more access to it. I'm trying to figure out a language thing but the language
Yeah.
thing depends on the user's experience, not our interpretation of. And so if we can just focus on the user's
I mean,
experience, I think
we
that
have
is the
two
important
main
part.
user
Mhm.
types. We
Mhm.
have advocates who are talking to someone or interacting with someone in some way and say, oh, I'm going to help you fill this thing out. They then initiate it and then give it to them after they've pulled it a certain distance. And then there's also probably people who are referred by advocates.
So I think
So
pro
it's
se is
someone like,
what I'm talking about.
yeah, and those pro se folks will, so I'm thinking about something like the Court Service Center, who are, they're not allowed to give legal advice, but someone might call them with questions, and then they would provide the legal information, which is, it sounds kind of like you're in this space. Why don't you see about this, and then point them to us. And so I think what we're going to do, at least I think that the launch model here is that we're going to try to get our URLs out to as many people in that sort of Court Service Center situation.
Yeah,
Or
don't worry
aid.
about that. That's,
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm
that
just,
sounds
it's
good.
it's hard
It's
to,
not
I
what
don't
I'm
know if I'm
asking
answering the
about.
question. I'll
Okay.
be quiet.
Yeah, but
And
that's
Michelle,
okay. But
I
later
think-
we can talk more about this later. I don't want to take up all the time right now, but
I do want to say that I think perhaps the legal people who you were involved with here are some of the folks who are least well positioned to answer this question, because we by tautologically don't deal with pro se people.
okay. That's
Okay.
good to
Yeah.
know.
Yeah,
Say the
I was
same
gonna say
thing.
I can reach out. I have friends at Volunteer Lawyers Project who do deal with a lot of pro se people. I can reach out to them. But I think
Okay.
I don't think there's a universal experience necessarily. I
No,
mean,
yeah.
in the
for
context
sure.
of 209As, you know, police give warnings, domestic violence advocates give warnings. A lot of people are on their 10th 209A in 10 years and just know what a 209A is, because they get one for 6 months, they drop it, they get one, they drop it.
Yeah.
But I could, somebody from like VLP might be able to, Volunteer Lawyers Project might, they do deal with a lot of pro se people.
I think
Okay.
I think this is why I said it's $1 million question, because when Legal Services, American Bar Association or something did a huge survey, something like 95% of people who have legal needs don't know that they're legal needs. So we don't.
Right. That's not actually the question I'm asking, but that is a $100
But those are the people that we are trying to reach. All right. So we don't know the answer to that, to your question.
But that is not the question I'm trying to ask.
Okay.
Okay. But that is.
Can I say what I have a little inside clue on what it might help. I know you're trying to avoid detailed language ones, but
let's delay until I get to talk to until I get to talk to, was it Katie who said that she knew somebody, or was it, are you said you know someone in law or in
VLP.
VLP,
Huh?
yeah, I have some friends there who probably do like a lot of Court Service Center and like clinic stuff that they might,
So I'll talk to them first,
more
maybe,
than the
if they're
GBLS
available,
people. Yeah.
and then we'll see.
Okay.
I think that
I'm
the
really
big
conscious
answer is
it's-
it really depends on the legal area.
Okay.
In some
that's
cases,
good.
it'll be very easy to tell whether you're starting a case or responding to one. Some of it will not be.
I
You'll have to
will.
ask specific
Yep.
questions about it.
I'd rather talk to them first. Thank you, though.
Okay,
Now I think I
guys.
understand your question better.
Yeah, I know,
Yes. It's very hard to, okay.
But Quentin,
I'm giving too much information maybe, but I think it will help direct people from giving you wrong answers. That's
I
all.
know, I understand, and it's okay with me if it takes longer to figure out this way than if it jumps us to a whole
You
different
started the conversation.
I
conversation.
will say,
That's
as an SME, this is a very frustrating way to be asked questions, though, Michelle.
I
which is-
understand. A lot of times people, if I tell people like the end point, then they try to get to the end point. What they see as the end point. And I am not a user interviewer, so I might get someone else in on this who does a better job. But it's just that, like, if I ask about, whenever I try to ask about this kind of stuff in a different way, people get distracted by the end point. So I need to try other avenues, otherwise I don't have answers to the questions I'm asking. Sorry.
It's 1 p.m. and I think
Yeah, you gotta.
Noelle,
go.
you
Let's
want to
go.
jump off, but I think maybe if we want to say 5 more minutes, I think Kendall wanted to say something.
Yeah.
Development related. Good luck.
All right. Bye, Noelle.
Noelle really has done a stellar job on this conservatorship form. It's really, really
That's
good.
great. That's very good to
okay,
hear. As a
so-
person signing her timesheets, I'm very happy.
Okay, Kendall, what do you have to say?
All right. So I've been working again on getting the emails and backing up of the records of completed interviews. And I was hoping to get some kind of more feedback with that, since we do want to get completed interviews to the courts. So if people could just try and take some time, there's the PR on the MA virtual courts. I could review that and also just run through a test interview to make sure that it actually does send out the forms. I need to figure out a better way of just describing how the court should use our systems, and also not entirely sure how we want to deal with courts logging into our service, how they want to access this for now. But
yeah, so let me tell you what the current MOU, the current draft version of the MOU with the court says. Basically, we will email them to the emails provided on that they've provided to us, and then the courts, the individual clerk offices, will print out the forms and treat them as they would normally a form that came in through the court. Okay. So they are not yet to the point where they're envisioning logging in to find the forms. I suspect at some point as things go on, they might like that. And we definitely want something like that for audit purposes. But the primary use case right now, as envisioned by everyone on the MOU, is just that they will receive an attachment by TLS email and print it out.
Okay.
But we really do want this to keep working on this in parallel, because we know they're going to need it and we want it. If they call us and say, hey, someone said they sent us an interview, but we didn't get it, we know that's an issue in the first couple weeks. And I bet that's going to happen. So. Yeah.
And I think eventually what I would love to happen would be we'd send the email and then it will include a link back to our site and says you can log in here to get it in the old versions or whatnot. But we're only going to hold those for a short amount of time. So.
All right. And so I guess in that case, the emails that are sent need to be cleaned up for better language, so people could also just look at that and see what's the best thing that we should say for the courts as well. That would be nice.
Yeah, so I'm just looking. So these don't change any of the other code in MA Virtual Court, right? So I could merge your request so we can install it and people can start playing around with it.
Sure.
Because it won't be, it's all new code basically, not changing existing code. Is that right?
And also, can go ahead and answer.
What?
It's all new code. It's not changing existing code.
Yes. I guess this is adding a new Python module and also adding a new YAML file, which is literally just tests that this stuff works.
Okay, so I'll install it. And then if you want to share the link and how the best way we can test it on the Slack channel, then I think that we can make sure. I can take some time to do it, and I bet other people can too, to make sure.
Yeah, I can also do that.
Something that occurs to me now as I said out loud the court's process is, do you think we should include a cover sheet on the top of our PDFs saying this was a file that came from Mass Access?
That's
here's
probably
the contact information from the people with email and phone number. Because I think what might happen is the court's going to go, they'll print out the attachment. They won't print out the body of the email, is my guess. And they'll just have a sheet of paper.
Yeah.
So there should be a cover page inserted saying this form was submitted through Mass Access. What other details would be on that cover sheet?
The individual submitting the form is so and so. Here's their, and then that question we have about how should people contact you. That and they should have the answer to that. So it says they have indicated they would like to be contacted at their phone or this email address. Or.
Did you want to put a little logo or branding on the court forms we send to them so that they?
No, we very much do not want to do that.
Okay.
And the main reason we very much not want to do that is because Suffolk is also it also houses clinical programs. And we do not want to be in the situation where some of our clients see some of the people on the opposite side of them have a form that was submitted with our logo on it. And then they're like, why are you helping the other side? So
I was thinking I was thinking the Mass Access rather than, but maybe
that's that's still
I get it. I totally get it. Yeah.
But I do think the cover sheet is important so that the courts know that it was submitted through Mass Access and then the relevant information. One thing that came up when I was looking at a form with Noel is that what happens when we have affidavits that need to be submitted with these forms? are those affidavits going to get waived, or how, how do you deal with that?
So all I know is that some courts have said they're waiving affidavits and some have not. So I don't know what that means.
You mean
I'll
like
just-
substantive affidavits that are like submitted in support of a motion, you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, some of the like 209A affidavits being worked on. We have the affidavit form in the Trello for like family law temporary orders, or we have a form. It's not, I don't think it's an official form.
But sorry, an affidavit, maybe it's different, talking about different jurisdictions here. In South Africa, when you have an affidavit, it has to be done by Commissioner of Oaths. You have to depose.
I believe most of those things have been waived right now.
Yeah.
So basically the emergency
question,
standing
that's fine.
order, the emergency standing order in place waives the requirement for at least, I know there was still some weird thing in housing court, but we should check on that.
But a lot of the
There are forms that need a
affidavits,
notary.
when you sign it, you
Yeah.
sign it under pains of penalty and perjury. So the family law affidavits don't need any kind of notarization or
Okay.
the thing that you're describing.
Okay, that's perfect. I just wanted to check on that then.
Yeah, I think basically what'll happen is we'll if we get to that point, it'll be something that when we give it to the court, they'll be like, okay, well, we're taking this or we're not taking this.
Does
They
anybody
could
else
also
have
reach
anything-
out to the person and have them do it in some cases, right? So it might be better to send part
Yeah.
of the pledge and not the whole, than nothing.
Okay, so I think we're going to wrap up for today. Does anybody else have anything? I mean, Kendall, if you could just drop a link in the Slack for people to test. And I'll talk to Kate about the paired programming and try and get those shadow people involved. Just so that we can try and get a new batch of people who are competent to do the paired programming. And does anybody else have anything else they want to raise?
If
Go ahead.
If I was just going to say, Michelle, Maeve, and Matt, if you want to stay on after, we can chat a little.
Okay. Sounds good. Bye-bye, other people.
Bye.
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 Bye.